I learned very quickly not to tell anyone that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right, if you have ever asked yourself this question, should I send my kids to public school? Should my kids absolutely go to college? I am here to tell you and introduce you to a woman today that we would all probably say absolutely 100% without a doubt, no. Like, if you are questioning and saying, like, well, but, like, are they really indoctrinating our children? And is that really happening? I mean,
100%.
It's 100% yes, and you guys, I'm so excited to introduce you to Annabella. I heard your show, or I heard your episode on Poplitics. We're going to give Poplitics a shout out. Alex Clark is our dear friend, and your episode was one of my favorite episodes.
Yes.
And it
so
was
good.
Extremely eye-opening.
Mm-hmm. I feel like the whole time I listened, I was just like, what?
I know. I was shocked, and now I want our audience to kind of hear your story. But let me really fast disclaim, when I first heard your episode, this was not what I was picturing. Like, I had this crunchy granola, like, vision, and I was thinking really short brown hair, glass. I don't know. I just had this whole vision.
Yeah,
I was
because
like,
when you hear it, you start just kind of putting, like, you automatically kind of like build like a vision of someone. So if you're just listening to this episode, when you're done, take what you think you thought Annabelle looked like, and then go head over to our YouTube and like go check her out.
And go check her out. Okay, so give us some background on who you were as a child growing up and what your family life was kind of like from a political standpoint.
Okay, absolutely. And thank you guys so much for having me.
Of course.
And for plugging Alex's show. I love Alex. I loved going on the spillover. She asked very good questions.
I know. She's like one of my favorite hosts. And you'll get a lot more on her show, so actually go back and re-listen to that episode, because we don't have as much time to dive into all of this as Alex did, but you'll get a lot of detail on that show.
So the really quick is, I'm an only child, so just keep that in mind. For my poor parents, I'm the only one. And I'm a young millennial, so then the world definitely revolves around me. I'm from New York City originally. I grew up, going to church on the weekends. I would say that my family today is considered conservative, but back then it was just normal, Loved America, like I said, from New York City, so appreciated other cultures, had the values of, treat everyone the way you want to be treated, love everyone, like pretty straightforward stuff, love your country, freedom, we're so blessed to be here, basic, what you think would be very basic American principles. I traveled a lot as a young child, being the only one. My mom made a point of trying to show me the world, exposed me to a lot. We also lived abroad for a bit. We lived in the Bahamas for 4 years, and fast forward now, my parents both live in Florida, but again, very well-rounded. I was an athlete. I figure skated, so I had, principles of waking up early and going after something that I loved. I always had jobs. That's kind of me in a nutshell, how I grew up, and very close to my family, like very close to my grandmother, very close to my aunts and uncles, like just, again, only child.
Yeah. Were you growing up in a public school, or did you go to private school through junior high school?
I went to private schools. As a young girl, I actually went to girls' schools, the same school that my mom, my grandmother, and my great-grandmother went to in New York City, which is super cool.
Oh,
I
wow.
love that tradition.
Yeah.
Kind of.
And tradition, totally a part of
like building a foundation, setting you up,
of my upbringing. So I was very blessed that my mom, no matter the financial circumstance, she was like, we're going to get you into a private school. She really valued education, which I think turned around and kind of bit her a little bit.
So as you're graduating high school, how would you describe your worldview?
So I always loved student government because I liked, being part of a community and public service. I was not political. I was open-minded, I would say, and that may have been my downfall. I was really open-minded to sort of everything. I was young. I wanted to learn, very eager to learn and go off to school at 18, but I didn't politically, I don't think I said I was a Democrat or a Republican per se, but I was like,
Did you vote in your first election when you turned 18?
So my first election I could vote at was when I was already on campus, already in college. Yes.
Okay.
And in fact, I did. I voted for Mitt Romney because my grandmother told me to vote for Mitt Romney.
Interesting. Okay.
And I remember that I didn't love President Obama, and it's so interesting because I really didn't love a lot of I felt that he negatively brought race into things. So that was sort of my mindset going into school.
Okay.
You know, that was my sophomore year, was the first election. I voted for Romney. I learned very quickly not to tell anyone that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, okay, so
Like that type of having to silence like your beliefs was already happening like back then.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I entered college in the fall of 2011. I graduated in 2015. So this was like years before. I think that colleges are the breeding ground for all the social movements we're seeing. So Mount Holyoke is where I went in Western Massachusetts. Ground zero.
Oh, wow. Okay, so that was my next, like, where did you go to school? So set us up. So you graduate from high school and you're ready to go. Like, how many schools did you apply to? Or was this the one school you wanted to go to? How did you choose this school?
I looked at a bunch of schools. I was graduating from a prep school in Florida, in Boca, and so I knew I wanted New England quintessential, like, university from the
Like
1800s.
fall charm.
Yes, I
yeah.
wanted all of that, and so I looked at the Seven Sisters and the Ivy Leagues. The Ivy Leagues were a stretch for me, so I was like, okay, let's try the Seven Sisters or the women's college components. They're still academically rigorous, but like a little bit easier to get
So
into.
you wanted to go to an all-women's
Yeah,
college?
I wanted
Okay.
to go to the most academically rigorous school that I could go to.
Okay.
And my mindset was, I've never had a problem finding friends. I've always had a problem finding the classroom. So if I put myself in an environment that's like, everyone's going to be smarter than me, this is great. So I did have that mindset that like,
Yeah.
I have something to learn from everyone,
Yep.
which made me as impressionable as I was. I don't know, but
So you choose Mount Holyoke as your school.
Yeah.
You know, I did not know a ton about Mount Holyoke until my good friend Antonia Okafor went and did a speech there. And
I didn't
are you
realize
familiar
she
with
spoke
this?
there.
no, but
So she went to go do, and mind you, this is a all-women's school. She's
Yes.
going to talk about what she feels like is an empowering speech to women about taking their safety into their own hands. And she goes to talk about the Second Amendment and be a firearms proponent. And I believe she had to get security. I'll have to fact check this, but like to get out of there. But she said it was the most hostile environment
Wow.
towards herself as a woman, trying to empower these other women to protect and defend themselves that she's ever encountered in her entire life.
Wow.
Does that sound about on par for what's going on at that school?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
go ahead.
One of my courses, it was a history class. And again, like I said, this school was founded in 1837. All of the professors have Ivy League degrees and are career academics. I mean, it is considered top notch, world-renowned. And one of my history classes, one of the professors took us outside and taught us how to protest, like had us marching in a circle. And at this point, I already was like, I drank the Kool Aid. I was like, yeah. And we were marching around saying no justice, no peace.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So what was it when you first showed up to Mount Holyoke? Before, as you said, like you drank the Kool Aid, like what was, like how far into that did it just start, like you were like kind of like soaking it all in and things like, I hate to use this word, but like you were like getting brainwashed into like this whole new like mind.
Yeah, was there a class? Was
Like,
there
what,
a
like,
conversation?
There was a class. I took gender studies. Nobody take gender studies. You're going to
Freshman
school.
year.
It's a bunch of nonsense. I took it my junior year.
Okay.
So the foundation of kind of easing into that was, I enter school and right away, so, I present, I'm very girly, I'm kind of preppy, and I got there and it was culture shock right away because you're totally encouraged to change your whole style and make it more granola, make it more androgynous. Like, it's very cool. You want to cut your hair. You're kind of told to stick it to the patriarchy by rejecting, femininity.
And who's telling you this? Teachers, classmates?
So it's peers, but then the teachers embody that.
Is it unspoken or is it spoken?
It's spoken.
Okay, so
It's
they are
Wow.
actually
So they
telling you.
they're
Yeah.
like trade your Louboutins
like,
for
sorry.
Birkenstocks?
Yes.
Yeah, but I've got Birkenstocks on now.
I love I was about to say, hold on, bad analogy because I also have Birkenstocks and Louboutins in my closet, but they're
basically,
literally like,
you're
you need
not
to
allowed
throw
show
these.
up like this. This was not okay.
Correct.
Take it from Elwoods to, whatever.
Yeah.
I don't even know the antithesis of that.
Yeah, I don't know who that would be. Some hippie. I don't know.
Did you cut your hair?
I experimented with fun colors. So I never cut my hair, but I did dye it pink. We had some like colored highlights for a bit, like rainbow underneath my hair.
Yeah.
So I did play around with it.
Is
I
this
didn't chop
an
off, though.
effort to fit into a culture? Like, you didn't feel like you could fit in just with their values and beliefs if you didn't change really everything about who you were?
Yeah, there's so much emphasis on like representation and how you appear. I think, there's such the emphasis in kind of leftism of identity is based on how you look, which is so ironic because diversity is meant to be of thought and of experience and background, but instead it's of race, sex, sexual orientation. So yeah, I'm like blonde, blue-eyed to be a little more fun and different. I got some pink highlights and
Like what?
I
Let's
pink
let's
anyway,
say
whatever.
you made like
Sometimes
the first.
I try to wear flannel.
Well, like let's say whatever the first like physical appearance change that you made. Did you notice that like they were like more accepting or treating you differently, like one of their own? Did that like happen?
Okay, here's an
no.
anecdote. I tried out my first year. I tried out for the crew team because they had open tryouts. It was something I'd never done. I was like, okay, whatever. And I remember I tried out and it was a little bit hostile. Nobody wanted me to join, okay? And I had another friend and we kind of joked. I was like, will you hold my hand on the bus to make it look like we're going to practice like together? She's like, yeah. And I'm not kidding. Like, I made friends that day.
No. Oh my gosh.
Like, so what was it about these people that made you try so hard to be accepted by them?
I mean, you're young.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
college. It's fun. It's exciting. It's funny, before I totally changed my beliefs, I actually almost transferred. My sophomore year, I was looking at other schools and, God's plan, I'm here today, so it all worked out. But part of me, I wish I had. I wish I could have spared myself a lot of years of being brainwashed, questioning everything about me, what I stood for, what I believed in. I think that you get there and you're told that, gender's a spectrum. There's a lot of girls on campus that look like boys, and they didn't look like that before they got there, but then they change all of a sudden. I try not to put too much emphasis on the student body because they were young and impressionable.
Mm-hmm.
Like, instead it should be the administration and the teachers that are watching as all of this unfolds. Like, they've got to think it's kind of weird everyone's all of a sudden conforming to the same style. Right?
Like, it's like if maybe they just, like when you're in it, you don't see it.
Yeah.
Until like you stepped away and
Yeah.
you kind of have like that hindsight.
Yeah.
But like, so I had a train of thought and then I lost it for a second.
So it was an outward transformation first. When did it become a complete transformation?
Yeah, like at what point
Mind, body, soul. What are you bought
all
in?
of this like is changing.
My junior year.
Okay.
Fall
Okay.
of my junior year.
And what are you buying into exactly?
This idea that there's an evil patriarchy that, unbeknownst to me, had been oppressing me my entire life, that the cards were stacked against me, that as a woman, there was an uphill battle that I was told that, as a woman going into the workforce, that I was going to have to be twice as good to be recognized for half as much as like a, average white male, quote unquote. I mean, that's a really harmful idea to put in the mind of a 20-year-old. Like, you're not building her up, you're breaking her down. So the patriarchy was the big one. Then, of course, the systemic racism that this country was founded on, that was another one. So racism and really just this intense fourth wave feminism, that you had to be the man you wanted to marry. That was one. That a man is to a woman as a bicycle is to a fish, right? Like, we don't need them. We can just be independent. Like, we shouldn't value ourselves as someone that could be a partner. So really the male hatred is taught to you. It's entrenched. And I mean, I had specifically my gender studies professor, who, of course, like, I thought she was really cool, right? She wore Doc Martens. I was like, this woman is so different.
I love my Doc Martens.
And she had been a lesbian separatist in her 20s. So what does that mean? That means that she lived as a lesbian and didn't communicate with men. That's who decided to come teach the women's college. Makes sense
Like,
in
she didn't
hindsight.
communicate with men at all.
No. Or that's what a lesbian separatist
Okay.
is. Her specific experience, yes, she probably had to speak to men at some point. I don't know,
Well,
but that's like the ideology
Right.
behind it. So that's who was teaching me about feminism, is someone that at her core like really hated men. So, I mean, it was all the books that I was given, and also the fact that, it's underlying Marxism, all of this. You hear a lie enough times, it becomes a truth. It's now seeped into every subject. So even though for me it started with gender studies, it then, it went into history, it goes into science. It has bled into every single subject, so there's no avoiding it, especially now. This was a couple years ago, but it's in everything now.
You're going to classes, hearing all these things, like your extracurricular activities, like your group of friends was just in your, like, based from your college? Like, did you have friends like that that you would hang out with that were not like on campus? Because like I'm assuming like if all of this stuff is happening and you're hearing all this stuff during classes also at the same time, like if you're going out after class for an afternoon to hang out with your group of friends, I'm assuming the conversation is still this same, just continuing what you're learning and talking about that.
Yeah, so I felt like I was living two lives at one point while I was in school, because I had my life at school and then I had my life in Florida when I would come home and see my parents, and I still had friends that I'd gone to high school with that I would go out with and I would see and I would catch up with, and I would try to tell them about my school, and it was so different than anyone else's experience. I mean, I definitely, like, my school is on the forefront of all the social justice movements. Like, I would talk about these things, and then I started to feel like I care so much about the environment. I care so much about feminism. Like, you're beneath me. I can't be friends with you anymore because you don't care about these same issues and the patriarchy and burn your bra. Like, it's so all-encompassing that I ended up, a lot of my friendships that I had from growing up or from home, I sort of distanced myself from those people in the same way that I eventually ended up not talking to my family. But
I'm so interested because we've run into this a lot as we try to empower women, like, to be able to take back, like, their safety and actually be independent enough to take care of themselves. Like, were firearms even on your radar at all? Like, what was the sentiment on campus about women having tools and being empowered to defend and protect themselves? Like, where did you fall in line with that?
Ooh. I mean, I think the idea of owning a gun was so far separated from anyone's mind. Like, it just wouldn't, I don't think people even said the word Second Amendment on my campus.
Okay.
It was not even considered.
But for a group that hates men and props up rape culture and these things that are happening to women, how do they offer you to combat that? Just change men?
Become a lesbian.
But what do you deal with the other men out there in the world that could do this to you?
You go into the workforce and you rise above them, I think, is kind of...
That is not a solution.
It's not a solution, but it's, you scoff at them, you judge them, you whisper under your breath. I was telling you before, I have a funny anecdote for you that in 2018, when I came home to Florida to work on the Andrew Gillum campaign, which is very sinful, I know, but I remember being in my parents' house, and at this point, we had stopped talking for a while, and I was kind of working on repairing our relationship, so I was in their home, and I found out that my parents are from New York City originally. My dad moved down to Florida while I was in college. I found out that he had bought firearms and kept them in the house, and I started crying.
Why? What were the tears for? Fear?
Like, betrayal. I don't know.
Okay.
Like, betrayed because he believed in the Second Amendment, something that was just like not even like part of your just system of thought.
Because leftism today, intersectionality, that's the big word. So if you can't just be a feminist, you also have to be an environmentalist. You also have to support trans rights. You also have to be anti-gun. You have to really fall in line with all of the rules. And so if someone's breaking one rule, it attacks you at your core.
Okay.
It's so emotional. So the fact that my dad had guns was like, it was too much for me to handle.
Oh.
Yeah.
So you mean like this group that are promoting diversity is not very diverse, and it's actually like creating very fragile people. Because they seem very... Were they happy, or was this like an angry group? Did you recognize like if they were happy or unhappy at the time when you're there on campus?
I can speak from personal experience. It's funny you use the word fragile. I became very fragile. I actually ended up turning to anxiety medication and self-medicating because I was just... I mean, it's like everywhere you go, there's some sort of bias, an inherent bias, like, and you just assume everyone around you is bigoted, and you look for instances of bigotry, which don't exist. It's not real.
Or you look for instances to get offended.
Yes. Yeah. So, I think that while you're there, while you're on campus, there's this level of camaraderie, and there's no God, so it has to be filled with something. In this scenario, it's filled with these ideas. So for a period of time, you have purpose. But I think as that continues, as you look down these avenues and you start missing out on so much of life, how do you enjoy anything?
Yeah.
How do you date someone? How do you have a family? Like, you can't if you're stuck in this. So of course you end up becoming unhappy. But I think in that environment, it was still kind of fun because it was fresh and it was something to believe in.
So, all right, we're
at senior year.
Junior year. So you said the junior year was a pivotal moment.
That's when I switched, yeah.
Okay.
Switched to full on.
To full on.
Social justice warrior.
Progressive.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you go home, dad has guns, you're crying. Like, how's your relationship with like your parents at that point? So if they see you crying about this, they're just like, what's happening?
Are they like, are they paying for school at this point?
Yes, so I do have some student loans, but my mom paid for a lot of my school, and I had a scholarship as well, so that was one of the reasons for going to Mount Holyoke.
Like I assume like you would go home, or you would visit, you would have you would call your mom and like, hey, how's school going? And would you share just like some of these things that you were doing, or like did they take notice like any like appearance changes?
So I would come home and I would start talking about these things like the patriarchy and how evil like the 50s were and just all these ideas. And my mom kind of started to be like, what are you talking about? Like, what do you mean that you're oppressed? What do you mean women don't have rights in this country? Like, haven't you had everything haven't you had access to every opportunity? So it started when I started coming home my junior year that my mom was like, what in the world is happening to my daughter? Like, I don't recognize her because the stuff that was coming out of my mouth. And also there's something to be said, like, I think when you're brainwashed, you know how you can sort of see someone's light, you can see someone's energy through their eyes. Like, I'll look at pictures, and even if I still look the same, I can just look at my face and know that I was not. I was different.
Wow.
So you get to senior year, like, what were your plans after college? Like, what were you going to go do with your life?
I think I was really committed to politics. I considered law school. I did go to grad school for a year. I got my master's, my MBA. I went to Spain and I did that. And the entire time I was in Spain is when the primaries were going on for 2016. Okay. So I ended up coming back in 2016 and working on the Hillary Clinton campaign.
So that's the Trump Clinton.
Yeah. Okay. And that really that ignited something. It got me going. And
I
was like, this woman's going to be president. I'm going to work for her. I'm going to go to Capitol Hill. There's this was a statistic while I was at Mount Holyoke. I worked in the admissions office. Like, when I tell you I was bought in.
You were all in.
I remember being told, I think it was at the time, like, 20% of Congress representatives are women, and of that 20%, it's like 70% went to women's colleges. So I think the seed of politics was really planted in me there, that maybe I'd go. And it wasn't from the angle of public service, do something for your neighbor. It was the motivation was go be a woman for representation, go be a woman in Congress because they need more women. Not because I had this desire to serve others, which now, on the flip side, all this has happened, and my goal is like, I want to bring people closer to God. I want to share my story and help people. This isn't about like being a woman sharing my story. It's just about sharing it because someone's going to hear it. And I've had so many parents reach out to me, even today, because I was on War Room this morning. Parents have messaged me saying, my kid went away to school. They don't speak to me anymore. Thank you. I now have some clarity on what's going on.
What did the Hillary Clinton presidency symbolize to you at this point, and how is this going to change your life as a woman, and really for women's rights in general? What was Hillary going to do for us that no one had done before?
She was going to break the proverbial glass ceiling.
Yes, of course.
What was that ceiling? I don't know.
What were we so oppressed from and chained down from that she was going to be the breaker of chains? I'm not. Not sure, but you had to have believed she was going to do something.
Yeah, I think at the time I liked her policies. You know, I followed her a bit as First Lady and what she did with the children's health care protection. I don't think I agree with anything now. At that point, I thought that maybe her policies would help people. I don't believe that anymore. I don't think that democratic and progressive policies help people.
So you worked on that campaign for how long?
It was a few months. Must have been from August through the election, and you work every single day.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's what campaigns are like. It's really fun. You work 13 hours a day. I mean, it's intense.
So take me to election day
Oh, boy.
of that year. I want to know when you woke up that morning.
You tell your parents you're working on this campaign, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, and I assume we know that they are not for Hillary.
They are not for Hillary.
Okay.
So I didn't even, this is kind of a testament to how I was I was trying to rebel. I was offered an interview in Virginia, and I packed up my car and I went, and I didn't tell my mom where I was going. And I ended up getting this job on the campaign, and they put me in supporter housing, and I wouldn't give my parents the address of where I was staying. For no reason. It's like they hadn't done anything to me, except for love me. But I was like, I'm going to stick it to you because you're not supporting this, and I'm not even going to tell you where I'm going or what I'm doing. And that's like kind of silly because I was going and staying with strangers.
Yeah.
They ended up being very lovely people. Nothing against them that I disagree with their politics now. They were very nice to open their home, but that was that was encouraged. You know, don't tell your parents what you're doing. They're the enemy. And that idea was also put in my head while I was in school by my peers, not just my classmates. So I will hold them accountable for that. And, you know, the intentions could have been good in that, but the intention to break up someone's family is never good.
It's never good.
It's never
good. And that's like at the core of what progressivism is trying to do. But I'm like, I gotta know. So you wake up election morning.
I put on all
How are
white.
you feeling? Okay, all right, walk us through.
All white pantsuit.
I wear white jeans and white blouse.
Okay.
I had shoes actually that had American flags on them, which is so funny because like she was not patriotic, but I was trying to lie to myself.
Your version of patriotism, you know, at that point. So is the energy? It's electrifying. Like you guys are all like, have y'all convinced yourself we got this in the bag?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Anyone that could be voting for Trump had to just be silly, and we felt bad for them. You know, the mindset was like these people are dumb.
Yeah.
And I mean, at the time, like my mom was in Florida, bundling fundraising for President Trump. Like she really liked him, and she would try to tell me because you know we'd talk a bit, we'd touch base, and in my mind I was like, oh, she's so silly doing this. Like I don't know why she's doing this because Hillary's got it in the bag.
Oh, so she's wasting her time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But I was like, oh, you know, so sweet, and she'd be like, I'm in Florida. Like this is just you know.
Yeah.
And she had love, you know.
Yeah.
But I woke up that day and the energy was, we're winning. Not even a question. It's by how much do we win?
Yeah.
Okay, so the votes start rolling in.
The evening.
I forget what time. We fast forwarded to the evening.
Yes.
The states start getting called. What's happening? And like, where are you? Are you with all the other staffers? Are you with the entire campaign? Like, what's going on?
I'm in a Virginia campaign field office.
Okay.
So we had a couple of them. So the one that I was in, there weren't a ton of people, but there were some people there. And election day is a long, grueling day. You wake up super early in the morning to get to the polls. You're knocking on doors. You're calling people. You're doing whatever you can to get out the vote. You know, I'll give Democrats that. They have a really good ground game. That's, you know, totally billionaire funded.
Yeah.
But, you know, besides the point that people can't see the hypocrisies. And that night I remember I was sitting on a couch in a campaign office, like so excited. So I'm like, this is it. Like America's about to show us that like we are equal. Like women have got this.
Let's go, girls.
Women power.
And the
Girl
votes are coming in, and I have my computer in front of me, and I have it on, of course, like the New York Times map, because it's got to be the New York Times.
Yeah.
Couldn't be any other source. And I remember I just keep refreshing, you know, because the states will go either blue or red. And I fall asleep for a bit, because it was kind of late when it was called. Fall asleep for a bit. Okay, I wake up, and I hit the tab button, because I fell asleep. It's been a long day. Hit the tab button, and the map goes red. And it takes a minute, and then it hits me, and I just breakdown. I burst into
Wait,
tears.
you were in the campaign office?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was in a campaign office. I'd fallen asleep on a couch for a bit. That was like not a big deal. That's kind of the
Yeah.
vibe
Were
on
there
campaigns.
other people there with you?
Yes, and as soon as I realized, like I looked around, everyone just kind of had a look of they'd seen a ghost. I just...
Was this right when they called it, or?
No, this was after. They'd already called it. So everyone had already experienced it. I was asleep.
Okay.
So no one bothered to wake you to let you
Yeah,
know.
to let me know the news. And it really felt like America was telling me I didn't matter. And it felt like that because someone had planted this idea in me that America hated women.
So what did you think about all those women that did support Trump? That felt completely free and great and happy that they weren't feeling the same like despair
They were celebrating.
that you felt. You're just like something is wrong with them. Like, don't they see the chains they have on them? Okay.
Yes, I was so mad. I
Well,
was
so
like,
then-
you sad women are so blinded. You don't see the truth.
So when did your
Truth that we're
blinders come
oppressed.
off?
My blinders come off in 2020
Okay.
during
Wow.
the BLM riots.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
That's what woke me up, is finally, perhaps because I, during lockdown,
So wait, so then just really quick. So the campaign, the election happens. We know who the new president's going to be. You are done with the campaign, supporting the campaign. You go back to school?
no, I graduated college 2015.
Okay.
Did 1 year in grad school. Graduated from grad school 2016, immediately joined the campaign.
Okay.
After the campaign, tried to come to Florida for a bit because that's where my parents were. Couldn't do it. I was like, whoa, Nelly, this is Trump country. I got to get out of here. So I moved to New York, pursued Wall Street, and 20.
So that's where you're at. You're in New York.
Yeah.
Okay.
Working, living your life.
Living my life. 2018 comes around. I start to feel that like sense of duty, like I've got to do something. Hillary lost, like this. And that 2018 was a big year. That's I think when AOC got elected.
Okay.
So I decided to come down to Florida and join the Andrew Gillum campaign, which was the like very progressive Democratic campaign. Which before that it was Bill Nelson, his Senate reelection. He didn't win reelection, but I left my job on Wall Street. I was like, I'm going back into this. Simultaneously, actually, I made some life changes. So I got sober, and in that time, literally had a clear mind. Okay.
So off the anxiety
Off
pills
the
and the
anxiety
pills that
pills.
you were prescribed
Wow.
before. Okay.
Yes. So I gave myself that time, and in that period, I reconnected with a higher power. I started to believe in God again. Not hugely, it was like I started to just believe in energy, little things, but tried praying. I would say serenity prayers in times of anxiety when I didn't want to take something. And just those actions made it so, I was on this campaign and I started to actually see the dark underbelly of what was going on, and that these people were on that campaign specifically were very obsessed with progressive ideals. It was pretty crazy working on that campaign. And I also realized I didn't think that anyone had intentions to help people. It seemed like it was just about power. It wasn't about helping Floridians. But even then that losing that campaign didn't turn the light on for me. I started to see a little, but really it was 2020 where I had 2 years of sober thinking, 2 years of starting to reconnect with God, that I was free, I guess, from leftism. And 2020, just sort of saw what was happening and couldn't deny the hypocrisy anymore.
And your driving
Wow.
force to reconnecting to God was really just to manage being off the anxiety and
Yeah.
trying to find a way to kind
Yeah.
of cope
Yeah.
without the pills.
Yeah.
Wow.
What's your mission now? Like when you obviously, you've had a big platform open up for you, which
Yeah.
I'm guessing you probably never thought this would be your path.
Yeah.
What is the message and the mission that you were hoping to share with people?
I really want to speak to young women. I think it's important. I wish I had been able to hear all of this when I was 20. So I want to speak to young women, 20s, 30s, 40s, also to families, but primarily to young women, to let them know that you can pursue career and family simultaneously, that we can reject this narrative that we have to be men and be everything and that we have something to prove we don't. First and foremost, I'm a child of God. So I want to help people to see that in themselves.
As a parent, I'm dying to know, like, what can you tell parents? What can they do if they see this happening to their kid? Is there anything your mom could have done or said? And what should parents say?
The most important thing that my mother did for me is that she did not affirm my newfound identities. When I came home, I was like, Mom, I'm a feminist. Mom, I'm this. I was questioning everything about myself. I was like, I'm an atheist. I don't know what my sexuality is, what yada yada. She looked me in the eyes and she said, no, you're not. And it was a risk because I ended up not speaking to her for a period of time, but she stood her ground, and because she knew me. Parents know their children. So if your child out of nowhere comes home one day and they're saying there's something totally different than they've ever been, and you know in your gut that this isn't them, you gotta stand up. You gotta say no, honey, and try to redirect them back to reality, gently, with love, delicately. But parents cannot buy into it. They cannot affirm. And the new bill that was presented in California that children can be taken away if parents don't affirm them, it is so scary to me.
Yeah.
Because, parents do know. And like I said, if we're meant to be perfect in the eyes of God, why is the solution changing everything about you?
Exactly. Should parents stop paying for college if they are seeing this radical transformation in their kids?
Yeah, take them out. Take them out immediately.
Or let them figure out how to pay for it if they want to continue to do that. I mean, like, should we go that extreme as a parent? Like, I guess it's hard to know when to step in and what to do. But I'm like, to me, I'm like, bye. Your free ride to college is now gone, and like I'm not gonna pay for that. Like, this is not what I sent you to college for. Yeah. So I mean, that's what I would do. Would you encourage parents to do the same thing?
I think parents, if their children are adamant about going to school, I think they should encourage staying in state, staying maybe a little bit closer to home so they can just be a little bit more connected to their family. I think the fact that I went so far away made me even more susceptible. I was so removed in such a different environment. I also think, young people, if you don't know what you want to be, don't go to school to find it out, because you're just going to leave with more questions about who you are. Unless you want to be a doctor or a lawyer, like, you have to get an undergraduate degree. Or if you're an athlete, I think that athletics are still, I think that's a reason to go to schools, to continue to train and do your sport. But if you're not convicted for any of those things, why would you go? Why don't you take the money, actually learn through experience, through life, start a business, start something small, or buy some land. If your parents are offering to pay for school, maybe take that money and put it somewhere else to actually learn something from experience, as opposed to learning from someone telling you, and a career academic who's never actually done anything outside of a classroom.
Yeah. Well, because it's not education anymore. It's literally them telling you how to think, how to behave, how to play. Like, that is completely different than actually going and trying to learn something. Yeah. So I just thank you so much for sharing your story, and I know that you've probably opened the eyes of a lot of our audience. We've got a very wide range of demographics that listen to this. So where can people find you if they want to hear more about your story or connect with you? Where can they connect with you?
They can connect with me on social media. It's just Instagram, Twitter, it's all Annabella Rockwell. Also, you can email me directly. My email is annabella@annabellarockwell.com.
Okay.
ANNABELLA. You can look me up. Please
Are you
reach out.
speaking? Are you open to be booked for speaking engagements?
I am.
Okay.
I most definitely am. I would love to speak. I think that it's so important that we share stories, and especially person to person. Being in a room, being here, we're at the Young Women's Leadership Summit, just being in a room of other people, even if you don't agree, even if you do agree. I mean, I just think that's how we get the truth out there.
Yep.
Last question, did you ever end up buying your own firearm? Do you own a gun? Have you been shooting?
I don't own a gun yet. I have been shooting. Part of
You're not crying anymore.
I'm not crying. As a result of me crying, my dad made me go shooting with him.
That's a
good dad.
He is. He was like, and he sat me down. He's like, I had to go through all these classes. I take this very seriously. And, I was so scared and I was so skeptical, but I did go, and, I haven't really been back.
Yeah.
But I don't have a problem with anyone owning a gun now.
Well, good for you.
I get it.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much. And you guys stay tuned for some more amazing guests coming your way.
Not Your Average Gun Girl Show and its related companies, Alexa Athletica LLC and Stami Tactical LLC, shares information that may potentially have legal implications for its listeners. A reminder that laws vary for each state, and we encourage listeners to seek local legal advice to understand applicable laws. Any items, services, products, and advice mentioned during the Not Your Average Gun Girl Show should be used at your own discretion in accordance with your local and state laws, and you should follow applicable manufacturer's instructions. Not Your Average Gun Girls, Alexa Athletica LLC, and Stami Tactical LLC cannot be held liable for your actions based on the information shared.